So I got all festive because today I have compiled 50 of my best DIY gift ideas for you. Let's get started. So this episode is a compilation style video. They are full-length tutorials that I've tried to condense down. I want you to feel like you can do any of these tutorials based off of watching it. I will have them numbered from 1st to 50th in the description box below with timestamps. So if you need to come back to it later and refer to it, there will be a list where you can easily locate the DIY that you are looking for. Sit back, relax, and maybe even DIY right along with me. But let's get started on our first DIY, which is a wood family cookbook. I have some of these 12 by 24 inch craft pieces of wood that I bought in bulk a long time ago. What we're ultimately gonna need are two 9 by 12 pieces of wood that look a little like this. Now I cut mine down out on my miter saw to get it to the right dimensions. Then I took my palm sander and sanded it really good around the edges, around the corners, just so there's no like sharp things that you could get caught on. And then I've designed a free printable for you to use, and it says the secret ingredient is always love. I like that. And then there's a blank space where you will put the name right there and then family cookbook. I'm gonna cut a vinyl stencil for mine just because I don't have a very steady hand and it gives me a nice clean look that way. But you don't need a machine to do that because you can just print it out on paper like so. And then you get a piece of graphite paper like this. And then you put this underneath and then you trace the image onto your wood and it's right there. And then you can fill that in with paint, or what I'm gonna be using is some antiquing glaze, and that way it will kind of give us a two-tone effect, kind of like stain, so you can still see the wood grain coming through, which is gonna look really cool. So I'm gonna be doing that with a stencil, and I just fill that in with the antiquing wax, and then we're gonna let that dry. And then we'll peel it back, or if you've done it by hand, you can just let that dry. And then you're left with something that looks a little bit like that. Isn't that cute? We're not even done yet, but I love the kind of two-toned stained effect that that gave with the antiquing glaze. And I also thought it would be kind of fun on the back to put Merry Christmas 2021 or whatever year you're doing this in, and then sign love the Callahans or whatever your name is, and then they will always remember that you gave them this really cute cookbook cover. But now we need to turn it into a binder. So I take a piece of paper and I trace the outline of where you put the holes for like a hole punch. And then we're gonna just take a drill and drill the holes in it. And then once we have that done, we are going to take some kind of sealer. Now you can use a spray on polyurethane, a wipe on, you can roll it on, brush it on, whatever works for you. Now that we've got our cookbook cover completed, the way we're gonna turn it into a binder is you can pick up these book rings at the Dollar Tree in a pack of 8, so super affordable. And we're just gonna hook that through, and it gives you a lot of room to put quite a lot of recipes. But the wood cover really provides a durable place to keep those family recipes safe. And I just think this is a really fun gift idea. I know I would love to receive this, and I made one for myself. And I'm really excited about it. I really love how this turned out, but what do you think? So my husband and my kids are like, wow, you really look like Minnie Mouse. And I'm like, no. Now I look like Minnie Mouse. Okay, Okay, so it seems like I always have to do some kind of cutting board. I love cutting boards. I love kitchen items as gifts. I've got another cutting board idea for you. This actually kind of started from one that I made at Easter where I did a bunny-shaped faux cutting board. I just made it out of scrap wood and I didn't intend to use it much. You know, it was just more as a decorative accent. Being Christmas, I wanted to make one that was food safe and meant to be used as an actual cutting board. So what I did is I went to Home Goods and found one. So what we're gonna do is I've created another free printable, and all of my free printable links will be in the description box below. We are going to trace this on with that graphite paper that we used earlier and trace it onto our cutting board with the graphite paper. If you have been nervous to use power tools, this is an excellent first project to do. So for this one, we'll take you outside. So we're about to get powerful. We are going to use a jigsaw. It's the first saw that I ever worked with. Once you get outside yourself and get over the fear, it's really easy to work with. You can really control where you're going. It doesn't take up a whole lot of room. It's not very expensive to buy, so it's a really good tool to have in your arsenal. So we're going to start by cutting the star first because it's kind of small and we need it to be kind of clamped down into place. We don't want to be working with small areas, so we're going to do that first. Then we're going to cut out the tree. And then we'll maybe sand up the edges a little bit. Now with the wood pieces cut out, we're gonna drill a hole in the top of the tree. My cutting board came with a little leather strap that we're gonna cut down a little bit and tie the star to the tree and kind of have it be like a little decorative embellishment. I kind of liked the idea of a little dangly star on it, and I thought that would be fun. And so we'll attach that now. Then I just took a little cold coffee that I stole from a neighbor, since I don't keep any in my house, and went over the freshly cut edges on the cutting board with that to finish it off. And then you have a gift that will not only be used but displayed throughout the holiday season, and every time they look at it they can remember that that came from you. And it's such a meaningful, wonderful gift idea that's functional, beautiful, and just amazing. I hope you like that one. So for our next handmade Christmas gift, we are going to be making a porcelain bowl out of some air dry clay. So all we're going to do is grab a big ball of it, kind of roll it up and smooth it out a little bit, and then we're going to take a rolling pin and roll it out on top of a piece of plastic wrap. And then once we do that, you're gonna take just a regular bowl that you have, like a cereal bowl. This one is about 5 to 5.5 inches, somewhere in there, where you're gonna place it upside down, and we are going to take a utility knife and kind of cut around it. Then I just have a little bit of water on hand to kind of smooth out the edges and smooth out the top. Now that we've got our circle cut out, I wanted to embellish it a little bit more, so I picked up these key charms at Michael's, and I just take one of these and I kind of clip off the little ring and use just the charm portion, and I press that down into our clay. And then once I've got that, I'm gonna lift it up and set it in a bowl, at which point we're gonna let it dry for 24 hours. Then after 24 hours, I lift it up very carefully. I peel back the plastic wrap and I flip it over and let it dry for an additional 24 hours. And then we have something that looks a little bit like this. I'm gonna embellish it just a little bit more. You can customize it with initials and then trace it on and then fill it in with paint. You will see that I'm using another stencil to keep it nice and crisp, but you might also want to try taking the outside of some stickers and using that as a stencil if you're just doing an initial like me and you don't have a vinyl cutting machine. That's something that I've done before and used like an outline of a sticker in lieu of a stencil, and it worked out great as well. So I hope that makes sense. Now to fill it in, you could use whatever paint color you want. I'm going to use this Rub and Buff for our lettering, and then I'm also going to use this same Rub and Buff to paint the entire underside. I think it's just a really pretty gold color, and then we're going to do a little bit around the edge of the little bowl in that Rub and Buff, and we're going to let that dry, and it actually dries pretty quickly. At this point, I decide I'm happy with the way it looks, and I decide to spray a high gloss sealer onto the back and the front. Unfortunately, when I did this on the front, it kind of had a weird reaction to the air dry clay, and it kind of made it turn back to the gray color again instead of the bright white that it had dried to. I was not happy with this, so once the sealer dried, I went back in and hand painted a few coats of white chalk paint to return it to that nice bright white color that we originally had. But because the sealer was already on there, it did cause some kind of like crackling effect, which did end up looking fine in the end, almost like aged looking. But I think I would suggest that if you were to make this for yourself, to go ahead and paint the entire front out white to begin with before doing any of your gold accents. That way you don't get any of the crackling. And then of course, after repainting everything and everything looking good once again, I went back in and did a clear coat. In the end, I'm really happy with the overall look of how this turned out. It was extremely affordable to make, and it's a really beautiful place that you could keep your jewelry or your keys, but totally customizable for the decor and tastes of the person you're giving it to. What do you think of this gift? For our next DIY, I have been seeing all of these like prize candles on Amazon. They're pretty cool. I will link them in the description box below, where they put in some kind of piece of jewelry inside a candle and you melt it down and then you pull it out and then you get a piece of jewelry. And so I thought, what if there's a way to totally customize that for a person and just kind of recreate that idea, but on a more personal level? I found these new jars at Dollar Tree. They're really cute. They are 20-ounce jars, $1. If you don't have these in your Dollar Tree, you could order like a case of 24 and make a whole bunch of them for Christmas. So I gathered up some of my favorite similarly scented candles and decided to melt them down. I also had some new ones as well to kind of add to it because it was kind of a larger candle. These are Antique Candle Company. I really love the smell of their candles. I'm an affiliate for them. And what I also like is that they are all colored similarly, so you can kind of mix and match those together nicely. I just place them in a pot of water and bring them to a boil, and then I turn it down so it doesn't crack the jar or go too crazy. Then I got these wicks off of Amazon. I really liked the idea of the wide burning wick, and I kind of was excited about them, but after actually lighting them, I would not recommend these wood wicks, and I would just use some regular candle wicks on something like this. Maybe you could just use 2 of them and space them about a ½ inch to an inch apart. Then you're going to pour in about 1 to 2 inches of wax and let that kind of cool, and while that's cooling, we're going to take our piece of jewelry and wrap it extremely well in some tin foil. We're talking several layers here. Just before that wax is all the way cool, we're going to set our jewelry into place and kind of stick it down in. When it's fully cool, then we're going to add the rest of the wax in. And these wood wicks are actually kind of tall as well. I actually had some special clippers that I clip off heads of nails on that are stuck into pieces of wood. And so I clipped the wood wick with that. But this is another reason why these wicks are not my favorite, because you can much more easily cut down a regular wick with just scissors. Now, I designed a label that I am going to provide free to you that's blank, and you can customize it with the name of who you're giving it to. I use canva.com for stuff like this, and then I just print it out on sticker paper. I made one as an example and one for my friend Emily, who just had a birthday. Again, I would recommend different wicks, but how fun would this gift be to put together for all of the people in your life? I've seen some where they've even hid money inside the candles, so you could just really get creative with what you are hiding in the candle and fishing out. What do you think of this as a gift idea? Our next DIY Christmas gift is a customized canvas tote bag. So I have this canvas tote bag here, and it's plain old Jane. And we're gonna make it kind of have like a boho flair and customize it. I feel like gift ideas that are really personalized are not only meaningful, but something that a person would actually like to use. I also have this canvas drop cloth that I've been cutting away for, I don't know, 1 to 2 years, and it still has plenty here. And we're gonna just cut off a little square of it. And we are going to put a person's name on it. Now, I didn't want to advertise somebody's full name on my channel, so I'm just gonna make this one for me. Who says we can't have Christmas gifts for ourselves, right? I'm just kidding. So what we're gonna do is you are gonna take some kind of typewriter font. The font that I used is called Special Elite, and I used it in a 105 point size. Now I taped my canvas square down to my craft table to hold it nice and secure into place while I worked. Then you are going to want to take your printed out name and tape it down to the table on the one side to hold it into place. And then you are going to place a piece of graphite paper underneath, and you're going to very carefully trace this onto your canvas square. You may need to go over areas more than once, so just lift up your piece of paper and check. That's why the tape comes in handy. Then once you have your name traced on, you are going to take a fresh Sharpie and fill this in. Now I like this better than paint because it really does have that ink-like feel that you would get from a typewriter. But looking back, I should have put a piece of paper or something underneath my canvas because it did end up bleeding a little bit onto my craft table, which is not the end of the world for me because I do paint the top of my table occasionally, but you definitely would not want that to happen to your dining table. Now all we're going to do is make sure everything is nice and ironed. Then we are going to pin it to the center of our bag and stitch around all 4 sides, leaving a little bit room for it to continue to fray. I kind of like this look. Now you could just leave it like this, and I actually think it's kind of cute all alone. Or you could add any embellishments that you like by way of lace or other trims, or maybe even some rosettes. But I decided to add a couple of tassels to mine, and I just took some of this Dollar Tree twine. Now the color didn't match perfectly, so you might want to use something that's a little bit closer match than I did, but I don't mind in the end how it looks. And all I did is I took a template out of some cardboard, and I think it was about 3 inches in size, and I wrapped the baker's twine around it 50 times, and then you cut it off. And then you're going to slide in another string and tie a knot and leave some excess. and then near the bottom, cut through all of those layers. Next up, you're going to wrap some more twine around the whole tassel about 7 or 8 times, and then you're going to tie a double or triple knot. And then I just left the excess long enough to kind of blend in with the rest of the tassel. Then you're gonna give the whole tassel a little haircut. Now I ended up making 2 of these, and then I take them and tie them to the handle of the bag, staggering them a little bit, and then I trimmed off the excess of that. Now this is a very cute boho tote bag that cost me less than $5 to make and is not only functional but so cute. I think anybody would love this. You could do it for a teacher or a friend or anybody really, and you can never have enough of these types of bags as far as I'm concerned, and especially one that has your name on it. So I don't know, what do you think of this gift? All right, so if you follow my channel, obviously I like to do a lot of serving trays and cake stands and things like that. So I've got another one for you today. I have this wooden candle stand that I picked up at Michael's, and I always wait for these wood items to go on 50% off sale. So I think it originally is $5.99 and I got it for $3. And then at Lowe's, I actually found this little wood round. This is smaller than the wood rounds that I use for a lot in decor, but it was a really good size and it's still kind of substantial. It's 12 inches. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna take my favorite glue combo and we're gonna use that E6000 and Gorilla Hot Glue, and we are going to glue our circle to the center of our candlestick, and we're gonna let that dry. So as you can see, this makes a pretty good foundation, but in and of itself, it's a little plain, and we're gonna dress it up right now. And what I have is some metal lace. I don't know if you've seen this online, but they also sell it at Hobby Lobby, and I thought it would look really cool if we just took some of this metal lace and added it as like a trim. So to attach our metal lace, I'm gonna use a tiny bit of E6000, but I'm also going to use my staple gun that does little pin nails, little tiny nails, and this was not very expensive, and it comes in so handy when you're trying to do little things and you don't want to have to take a little hammer and nail and like tap 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 and try not to hit your thumb, especially with like these tiny little nails. So this will come in really handy. So you're going to make sure you want to be really aligned and just press in and pull the trigger and put in your nail, and we'll just put a couple of those all the way around, and then between that and the E6000, you are gonna be golden as far as it being sturdy. Now we can't leave it unfinished, and I thought it would be more complicated to take out a brush and brush it with chalk paint. It just would take a little bit of time, and we are in a busy time of year. It's hectic, so I thought it would make more sense to just spray on some matte white spray paint. And so we're just gonna take this outside, spray it on, and then we're gonna just distress this because this is meant to be kind of like farmhouse, kind of rustic and beautiful. And I love the white color. Now what I will say is I don't really know how food safe this would be. It's meant to be more decorative. It would be totally fine putting cupcakes on it that have kind of a liner. And if you wanted to use it as an actual cake stand, I would just put something underneath it to kind of line it. But you could put candles on it. You could put a lot of different things on it. And I still think this is a very versatile piece. I would love to receive something like this. So I think this would make a really good gift idea. I hope you do too. For this next handmade gift idea, I think this has so much versatility, and it is another sewing project, but it is so simple, pun intended. A beginner sewer could totally take on this project, I promise. So we are gonna be making an infinity scarf. So I just kind of raided my fabric stash, and I have some Sherpa fleece, which is super soft and it would be so warm. I've got this flannel that's very Christmassy. I think the two of these together would look really awesome. It's a little warm for here in Florida. There's a lot of versatility in it. You could do whatever fabric that works for their personality, the kind of their style, their taste. But I'm gonna have a little bit of fun. I have a lot of different fabrics here. I've got 2 different kinds of red and black buffalo check that are super cute. One's a little bit smaller, one's a little bit bigger. I've got a little animal print, a little cheetah. I love that. I think it's so cute. I'm actually gonna take the large red and black buffalo check and I am gonna combine it with cheetah. Now, I know that that seems like a little bit crazy, but I promise you, the combination actually really works. But again, you can use whatever fabric, whatever works for you. What I really like about using a jersey knit is you don't really need to finish the hems because a knit fabric does not fray, which is awesome. So you can skip that step. It's super, super soft. And so all we're gonna do is we're gonna take the entire width of this fabric and we're gonna cut 9 inches of each. So you need a total of about a half a yard per scarf because you do 9 inches and 9 inches and the total width. Once we've got our lengths cut out, we're gonna sew down the long sides. Now this next part is a tad tricky to explain, but it's pretty easy to do, so just watch what I'm doing here. Once you turn right sides out, you're going to take one side and put right sides together and match it up and pin it really well. And then continue pinning around until it's kind of hard to pin anymore. And that, I hope that makes sense. It's going to end up leaving like a 2 to 3 inch opening, and you're going to take that to your sewing machine and sew all the way around as far as you can. And then you're going to pull that out and be left with a couple inch area that you're going to need to hand stitch shut. What I do to hand stitch is called a channel stitch. I like this one because it's pretty hidden from view when you're done, but you could definitely do a whip stitch if you like. So about a half a yard worth of this fabric was maybe $3 to $4, and for $3 to $4 you have a handmade gift that is so cute, so stylish, functional, and that makes a great gift. What do you think? So for our next DIY gift idea, we are going to be making some fabric bowl covers. And I thought this would be a really good idea because, you know, it helps us cut down on waste. But who wouldn't like to open up their fridge and see some really cute darling covers for their food? I know I would. So I actually raided my fabric stash and I had this black and white buffalo check that I thought would be really cute. You can use whatever fabric you like. You could even make it holiday themed if you want. Then you're going to pull out a couple of bowls in different sizes if you want to make them a set, or maybe you are only making one. So just get out a size of bowl that looks like it would be good for anybody and use this as your template. So what we're going to do is we are going to lay out our fabric and have the right side, which is the good side, facing down. And then all we're going to do is we're going to take our bowl and lay it down on top of our fabric. Then you're going to need like some way to mark it. You can use a fabric pen like I'm going to use here. And we are going to mark 2 inches around the bowl, all the way around. Then you're gonna kind of connect the dots, I guess. So then we're gonna just cut all the way around and you're gonna have a circle. And I just cut my circle out using pinking shears because then I don't have to finish the edges, which saves me time. And that's important this time of year. Then we're gonna add some trim to it, and I thought it would be really fun to add something a little fun. So I got this red rickrack that I thought would look really cute on the border. And then we're gonna add our trim. Then we're going to take some 1/4 inch elastic and we are going to take that and wrap that around our bowl, kind of up top, to get the dimensions of what we need. Then we're going to subtract 2 inches off that. Once we've got that, we're gonna make a cut, and then I'm gonna just stitch this together with a little zigzag stitch so we have now a round loop. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna wanna fold our circle in half, put some pins in there to mark that half, and then you're gonna fold it in half again, and you're gonna put pins in that to mark the quarter. So you've got 4 spots. Now you're gonna kind of take that and evenly space out the elastic so that you can evenly space it as you sew it on, because you're gonna wanna stretch it so it gathers in. And then you're gonna wanna use like a zigzag stitch so that when it stretches, it doesn't break the stitch. And this is really important, so it will give you that give. And we're gonna stitch that on there so it gathers up. And then you're left with this really adorable fabric cover that somebody could put on their bowl to keep food fresh, and then they can just wash it when they're done. What do you think of this? Is this a gift you would like to receive? Did you know that you can grow a loofah? I didn't, and you can grow these. And my friend Stacy actually grew this and gave it to me. We are gonna take this loofah that Stacy grew and turn it into some fun Christmas gifts. But if you aren't growing your own loofahs, isn't everybody growing their own loofahs? If you're not growing your own loofahs, they're pretty inexpensive to get. You can order them on Amazon. You can find them pretty much everywhere. So you will be able to find this in a store and not have to grow your own. I've got 2 different kinds of soap. I've got a clear glycerin soap, and then I've got a white soap. And we are going to attempt to make this loofah look like a peppermint candy. I know. So we're gonna go down in the kitchen and make this soap. You are going to want to follow the directions of the package of the glycerin, but I cut 8 squares of glycerin soap base and I gradually melted it down. Then I added drops of red dye until I was happy with the color. Next, I poured it into the muffin tin. If you have a silicone muffin pan, this would definitely work a little bit better. I tossed this into my fridge to cool while I cut the loofah down into approximately 1/2 inch sections, which I totally eyeballed. Then I took the red soap out of the fridge and cut it like a pie until I had 8 pieces. Then I took 4 pieces and created a star pattern as seen here. Then I took about 6 to 8 inches of twine and ran it through one of the holes in the loofah and tied it in a knot. This will make it convenient to hang in your shower. Then we set that on top of the red pieces, which is going to make about 8 bars for me, but you could adjust the amounts and make larger batches if you like. Place this all in the freezer and get it really cold while we melt down 16 squares of white soap base in the microwave. I do this in 15 to 30 second increments until it's melted down. Let it set for a couple of minutes and then add peppermint essential oil, about 24 to 30 drops, or whatever level of scent you like. I then decided it would be better to have it in a container with a spout, so I switched it out. Then pull out your freezing cold muffin tin. Putting it in the freezer will help the red soap pieces hold their shape while you pour the warm white soap over the top. Now you can see when I get to the end and the last soap, it kind of firmed up before I poured it, so it ends up looking a little funny. So any of you pro soap makers out there, please tell me what I did wrong here. My best guess is I waited a little too long to pour, but I have 7 others that turned out just fine, so I am happy. This is only my 2nd time making soap, and I think you can see that you don't have to be a pro here to get the job done. Pop these soaps back into the fridge or freezer and let it set for about 20 to 30 minutes, then gently pop them out by tugging on the twine. If you have any white that covers up the red glycerin soap, you can simply cut that off with a sharp knife. Then I wrapped these up like little peppermint candies, and voila! Aren't these cute? They almost look good enough to eat, but I wouldn't. What do you think of this as a gift idea? So I picked up these little Irish mugs at the Dollar Tree. I think they're really cute. I think that they'd look adorable with hot cocoa in it, but I wanted to make them a little bit more special. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna take some of these poster stickers that you can pick up at the Dollar Tree, and we're gonna use them kind of as a stencil. So what you're gonna wanna do is cut out the letter of the last name of the person you're giving it to, or if you wanna do it by kind of the first initial of everybody in your family, or however you wanna do this, you're gonna take the letter of the initial, and you're gonna take some scissors and cut that letter out, leaving as much wiggle room as possible. Then we're gonna remove the actual sticker and set that aside because we're not gonna actually be using it, because we're using this as a stencil, so we want the inside of it. You're gonna wanna take some painter's tape and kind of tape off the edges so it gives you a little bit more wiggle room on this next part, because what we're gonna do is we are going to etch the glass. I was a little intimidated to do this the first time I did it, but it's actually not scary at all. And what you're gonna need is some of this armor etch. And you're just gonna take a paintbrush and put it on there kind of thick and let it sit for like 15 minutes and etch the glass. If you feel like an area's kind of moved a little bit or whatever, then you can just add, during that 15 minutes, just kind of tap it over and kind of fill it. And then what we're gonna do is go to the sink and rinse that off with a little soap and use a paper towel and just kind of rinse that off, and you have their initial etched on this glass mug. And isn't it so cute? You could give it to a teacher. I was told though, teachers don't want mugs. They get so many mugs, no more mugs. So don't give it to a teacher, give it to a friend. All you teachers out there, let me know in the comment section below if you're tired of getting mugs or if you'd really like one of these. Do you need another mug? Do you want this mug? Let me know. Now, I've been seeing on Pinterest these hot chocolate bombs. It's the bomb. Anyways, I thought that would be really cute to make. So I got one of these molds, and it's kind of like a silicone tea cake mold that's in the shape of a dome. I took about a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips and melted them in the microwave. This didn't take long, maybe 30 seconds to a minute at the most. And you want to make sure it gets hot enough, but not fully melt, and then you stir it the rest of the way until all the chocolate chips are melted smooth, because you don't want to burn it. Then you scoop out some of your melted chocolate and take a spoon and spread it out on the inside of your mold, trying to cover it fully while still leaving it hollow enough to put things in. Then we're going to pop it into the refrigerator or freezer to make it very cold. We're gonna make sure it's nice and cold and then remove it. Then you're gonna just take your favorite hot chocolate mix and maybe crush up some candy cane and maybe even put sprinkles and fill in the center. Then you're going to join them together, and I did this by taking a lighter and just heating up one of the edges of the chocolates, and I put them together. Now you may want to have a little extra chocolate on hand as well to kind of fill it in and make it stick, and you may also want to have your hands a little cold, because I found that my hands wanted to melt the chocolate when I handled it, which created some problems. But overall, I was very happy with how they turned out. And you could add some red and green drizzle chocolate as well as sprinkles on top, however you want to embellish it, or you could just leave them plain. Now it's time to make some stir sticks to go with it. At Dollar Tree, they have these little packs of wooden stickers. You can use whatever shape you want, but I really thought that the little snowflake was really cute. All we're gonna do is take one of those wood snowflakes and glue it to a popsicle stick, and then you end up with a really adorable stirring stick. And you can just kind of set that in your mug and have that as a part of your little gift. Now I just wanted to demonstrate how to do the hot chocolate bomb. So the way they do it is you heat up some hot milk and pour it over the bomb, and it kind of melts and explodes inside the hot chocolate mug, and I thought that was so much fun. Not only was this a lot of fun, it tastes really yummy with the melted chocolate as well. So this is a winner, I think. I like to try to find joy and the good in everything that I possibly can. Focus on the good and then throw away the rest. That's my mantra. And so what I thought for this next DIY is doing a memory jar. So you're gonna need a jar. You don't need one this big. You could use a canning jar. You could go to the Dollar Tree. They have cute jars there. Whatever kind of empty clear glass jar you want. This one kind of has a farmhouse vibe. I thought it was kind of cute. And it's one that I've had forever. Then I am providing in the description box below a printable. So again, we're gonna be focusing on good and happy memories. So, and on the back side it says, fill this jar with your favorite happy memories throughout the year. And then on New Year's Eve, empty out the jar and enjoy reading all of your happy memories for the year. I thought this would be a really fun activity to do, and so I thought it would make a really fun gift idea. So you're gonna need some pens, you're gonna need some little mini notebooks, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna attach these printables to these chalkboard gift tags that are round that you can get at the Dollar Tree right now. They're pretty easy to come by. If not, you could totally make something out of some cardboard and just cut them out. It's not that hard. But this was kind of designed to go with this, but there's flexibility. This set makes 6 and this comes in a pack of 6, so it's actually works out really good. Now you're gonna need a mini tote bag to hold your notebook and your pen for people to write their happy memories on. Now, I decided to make my tote bag out of the same fabric we made the bowl covers in, and it's a pretty simple process. All you need to do is lay your notebook down and fold your fabric over to make sure you have enough. Then cut it out. Then we're going to sew down the sides, leaving an opening on one side of the bag. And creating a pocket for you to run some ribbon through, as you see me doing here, which you can easily do with a safety pin, and once you get it through, tie the knot on the end and you have a simple tote bag. But you don't have to make your tote bag. You can also purchase them for pretty inexpensive as well. I've seen them on Amazon. I've seen them in the wedding section of craft stores. Then you just toss in a pen and a notepads into the bag, and you can just loop on your descriptive tag to the bag. And then my ribbon was actually long enough that I could slip the loop over the top of the jar and just simply hang it. Now I wanted to make mine a little cute since it is a gift, so I just took some buffalo plaid ribbon that matches the bag I made and I already had on hand, and I tied a bow and then tucked some Christmas greens into the ribbon. But you could embellish your jar however you like. They have everything they need to write their little happy memories. You can also throw in pictures, ticket stubs, whatever you want into this jar, and at the end of the year you get to look back at all of the wonderful things that happened to you in the year and count all of your many, many blessings and many happy memories. And I just love that. I think focusing on the good is always the way to go. What do you think? Do you think this is a good gift idea? Okay, so for our next DIY, we are going to be making a monogrammed cutting board. I love cutting boards. They're handy to have around, and I think customizing them makes them really special. And we are going to monogram this one. Now, I picked up a whole bunch of these last year for $4.99 at, I think it was TJ Maxx or Home Goods. This one's going to be so easy to do, I promise. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those same stickers that we used to monogram the glasses, and it's kind of a similar concept as that, except for we're doing it on a cutting board and we're using a little different technique. So we're gonna peel off and make our stencil with the stickers again. And then one of my favorite things to use, you've seen me use this on here before, is using a scorch marker. What we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of just set this up in the bottom right hand or left hand corner, just whatever is your preference. And then once we've got our sticker down and we're using it as a stencil, we are gonna take our scorch marker and fill it in and get it pretty saturated. And then we'll peel back our sticker and we are gonna take a heat gun and we are going to heat it up and burn that image on. The heat guns are not very expensive to buy and they're really handy. So how easy was that to make something totally custom, something that somebody will really love, and it's as simple as that. You cannot go wrong with food, and one of my favorite things in the whole world is homemade bread, right? And homemade jam. What's better than a slice of homemade bread with a little bit of homemade jelly, or one or the other, it doesn't really matter. So for this next gift, we're gonna go down into the kitchen. All right, so I know some of you are probably saying to yourself, I can't make homemade bread. Well, I'm here to tell you that this recipe that I'm about to share with you, it's really hard to mess up. There's just a couple key things you need to keep in mind, and the first is water temperature. You want it to feel very warm, like bath water, but not burning. So I always like to test it on my wrist. And then also use fresh yeast. If you remember these things, the yeast will proof and it will make everything else work out. So I will link the recipe that I like to use in the description box below. But it's 2 cups of warm water and 2/3 cup of sugar and 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. Then you whisk that together and let it sit for about 5 minutes while it gets nice and frothy. It should look something like this. Then you're going to add 1/4 cup of oil. I typically use canola oil, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And then you're going to need 6 to 7 cups of flour, depending on where you live and what the humidity is like. And you'll kind of add this gradually. I like to start with about half up front. This is probably the trickiest part, just because you want to add enough flour so that it pulls away from things, but it's still a little sticky to the touch, but not so sticky that it sticks to your hands, and that's the key. When you achieve this, and after some kneading, you're going to pull the dough out of the mixer bowl and kind of tuck it into a nice little ball, and then grease your bowl, and then put it back into your bowl and let it rise 1 to 1.5 hours underneath a damp towel. Then you're going to punch it down and divide it into 2 sections, forming loaves. And then I place my loaves into my pans and let it rise from 30 minutes to 1 hour uncovered. While it's rising, I usually let the oven heat up to 350 degrees, and then when it's ready to go, I bake it for 30 minutes. All right, is there anything that smells better than homemade bread? I don't know, what's your favorite scent? Cookies, pie, what is it? I am a big fan of bread, and it is done. I usually butter the tops and let it cool. Since we are giving this as a gift, I thought it would be really cute to wrap it in a festive red and white striped tea towel. And then I also took some upholstery webbing that I had on hand because I thought it would add a really cute touch. And then we pinned it all on the bottom. And then for a little bit of embellishment, I took some holly and berry and hot glued that to the webbing. Now this would be really cute delivered with some fresh homemade jam or jelly as well. If possible, it would be really awesome if you could deliver this warm when the aromas are still so pungent and yummy. If you are looking for a gift of love from the heart, there's really nothing better than homemade bread on a winter's day. Okay, so for my next few DIYs, they are IKEA hacks. But if you don't have an IKEA near you, don't worry, because all of these ideas are very adaptable to things that you can easily find in your areas. So without further ado, we are going to go into our first IKEA hack, which is we are going to be taking this sort-so rug and making it into a purse. And now, if you don't have an IKEA near you, there is a really adorable herringbone black and white rug at Dollar Tree that I think would work so cute. So this is pretty easy to put together. It does require a little sewing. I mean, I guess you can make it without sewing, but the real proper way to do it is with a sewing machine, and this is a perfect beginner project. It is just straight stitching at its finest. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our rug, remove the big ginormous tag off of it, and then we're going to kind of fold it into thirds so that it's kind of going to be like a messenger flap. Now we're going to do this kind of inside out, so like the tag side out, then flip it, and then the tag side will be in. So right sides together. So then we're going to take some clips and clip the bottom portion that's going to be the purse section, and we are going to sew down the sides. You could stop right here and put on the strap and be done with it, but I wanted ours to have a little bit more structure, so we're going to kind of do like a box pleat, I think is what it's called. I'm drawing a blank here, but you get the idea. So what we're gonna do to do that is we're gonna make a triangle on the corners, as you see me doing here. Even though I used the kind of fun clips on the side seams, this really does work better with a straight pin, just because it kind of shows you where you need to sew. And then we're gonna go from that point up 2 inches, and we're gonna put in a pin, and that's where our stitch is gonna be. And then we're gonna put a couple more pins on either side so we can kind of have a line to follow. And then we're gonna just stitch that across on the angle like so, and we're gonna do it on either side. Now this will kind of give us like a bottom and give us a little structure to this purse, which is awesome. And then I don't cut off the excess. I'm gonna leave it just because I think it adds a little bit of stability. It's fine. I don't actually cut off anything. I actually even left the fringe at the top of the inside of the purse just because I didn't think it hurt anything to have it there. So I did this a little out of order, but I actually think it will still work just fine. But I decided to go ahead and put in some little loops on either side to attach our strap to that we're going to be making here in just a second. And I stitched that on after the fact using a zigzag stitch. I think this worked out fine, but honestly you could probably take some loops and sew them into the seam so they're kind of more on the outside. I hope that makes sense. But this worked out fine by just stitching it on that inseam area and having 2 little loops. Kind of like stood it up, and it felt like the top section was hanging out a little bit too much now that we did our little box pleat on the bottom. So I decided to just at the top stitch in, like fold it over and stitch it in like 1 inch on either side, and that just kind of narrowed the top flap just a touch. All of these extra steps are totally optional. It's all just what you want to do and how you want to kind of personalize it. Now it's time to add a strap, and I thought it would look really cool and kind of have like a boho flare that we're kind of already having here if we did one that was made out of beads. So I just took some kind of thicker jute twine. It's not quite a rope, but it's also a little bit thicker than a twine. I think I picked this one up from Walmart, and I threaded these wooden beads that I get in bulk off of Amazon. They're such a good price when you can buy them in bulk. I'll link them below. And I just strung them, and I made my strap about 36 inches long, but you could kind of just take a measuring tape and measure it to see how long you think you need it. It kind of depends on like the size of the purse, you know, and how high up you want it or how low. I kind of made mine as like a cross bag. You'll see here in just a second, and just thread those in. And then we are going to loop that through and kind of tie it onto those loops that we sewed onto place. And I did like a triple knot. I'm not an expert knot tyer, but I tied it on the best I could, and then I did the same to the other side. And then just for added assurance, I just took some super glue and kind of like soaked those knots so that they weren't going anywhere after the fact, and they aren't. I promise you, I've touched them. They are as hard as rock. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But I just wanted to make sure that once it had some weight on it, that the beads wouldn't go flying everywhere. So I assure you this strap is solid. Another idea that I had is maybe that you could put some hooks on them, and so you could make it removable, so you can toss this into the washing machine if you wanted to. I didn't do that. It would be an extra step and a little bit extra cost. That's up to you. So my last step in this process is to just kind of finish it off. I tied on a faux button. Honestly, the top flap is long enough and kind of heavy enough that I didn't really feel like it needed to be kind of buttoned down like it was. It's not going anywhere. So this is more decorative. I picked up this button at Michael's and I tied it on with some jute twine. I didn't, you know, I stitched it on with kind of a heavy needle to make sure it was really secure. I just kind of tied it off on the back and then cut it. And I think this bag is super cute. I would love to get this as a gift. I think it would make a really great gift for yourself. You can always give yourself a gift, right? Or somebody in your life. I think that they would really like this. You could go get the ones at the Dollar Tree, try those out. I really think the size of those and the look of those would be fantastic for one of these rug purses. I love this as a gift idea, but what do you think? Okay, so for this next gift idea, we are gonna need to head down to the kitchen. Okay, so we're in the kitchen and you may be asking yourself, wait, am I watching Design to the Nines or Dine to the Nines? No, I am not switching to a cooking channel, but I just thought it would be really pretty to make an infused olive oil to give as a gift in this container that I found at IKEA. Now, there are so many ways to do this. I'm gonna link a couple of episodes that I watched, but there are tons of different recipes, so go check those out, and I'm just gonna kind of walk you through the process that I did. So the one that I went with is kind of like a sage, rosemary, and thyme, and so in mine it has some peppercorns. In mine, I took like 32 ounces of high heat olive oil that I got buy one, get one free at Publix. And then I dumped that into a pot. Then I added some sage, rosemary, thyme, all fresh, and then a couple of cloves of garlic. And then also I put in there some peppercorns. Now, the one that I watched said that you kind of bring it up to 300 degrees. Once it's at 300 degrees, turn off the heat, let it sit for 10 minutes. And that's what I did. I fished out all of the kind of larger items, and then for the smaller ones, because I didn't have like one of those kind of small strainers, but I had this strainer, then I kind of transferred it into a bowl and let it cool a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna go back upstairs, and I thought it would be really pretty to put a little decorative necklace around our infused oil, and so I just took some of these wooden beads. You could take the same wood beads from the purse if you'd like to, but I had these ones that were a little bit smaller that were from Walmart, and I kind of just rotated the colors, kind of like a medium brown and a more natural color, kind of rotated them back and forth. I made it about 7 inches, and honestly, I think 6 inches would have been a little bit better. So just keep that in mind on yours. You can take a little measuring tape and kind of measure and see what will work for your bottle. And I just kind of rotated them back and forth, and then I kind of knotted it off at the end. And then I added just one more bead and knotted that off as well. And then I took some twine and kind of wrapped it around my hand, and as you can see here, this twine was very intertangled, and so it was kind of a mess, but I ultimately did get a little tassel made out of this. So you just kind of wrap that around a bunch of times and take the excess of that twine from your beaded necklace and kind of tie it through that tassel and make a knot. And then you kind of take another piece of twine, wrap that around a whole bunch of times and then knot that off, and then you can kind of cut off the bottom and you have a tassel. And then I thought one little fun added step is to take this little chalkboard tag that I got from the Dollar Tree and kind of tie it to our tassel and just write on in a white paint pen infused oil. Now then we're gonna slip that over the top of our infused oil, and it just really makes a cute little gift, don't you think? Now, here is what it looks like if you put the oil in hot. I wanted to share my fail with you because I like to keep it real. I got a little antsy. This is what you get, is a cloudy mess, but we'll go back to the one that actually did work out. This is the first time I've ever made infused oil. It was really a fun experience. I think I will improve with a little practice. Give it with a loaf of bread, give it just as it is, but I think that this is a great gift idea that anybody would love. You know, I'm always doing some kind of cutting board. I love cutting boards. I think they're beautiful. I think they're functional. I think they make a great gift. So when I found this ginormous one at IKEA, it had a really cool shape. I didn't actually want to do much to this one. This time I decided to just kind of keep it simple, and I wanted to kind of do something just to the upper portion and kind of do a color wash in black in this. So all I did was kind of tape it off. I went ahead and I thought it would be a really good idea to do matte Mod Podge kind of to seal the edges. I would go ahead and skip this step because it didn't really help. It ended up kind of not accepting the black color wash evenly. But for the black color wash, I just mixed some chalk paint with some water until it was kind of runny and kind of just did it on the upper portion and let it dry on all the way around. I did have to put like an extra coat or two kind of where I put that matte Mod Podge, and honestly the idea of doing that was to prevent bleeding. It still bled. That was such a bummer because it didn't even work in the end, but it was probably because the paint was so runny and I was working kind of on a curved surface, so there was a couple of areas that did bleed. I was able to very carefully sand it off, and I ended up sanding off the whole upper portion where I painted the black and kind of giving it a distressed look anyway. So I was able to mask that. You couldn't really tell. Honestly, it looks great in the end. And that's it. It was like so easy to just do that. Honestly, I kind of like the simplicity of this one this time around. After I completed my cutting board, I came across this designer one for $160. Ours was way less than that. And honestly, there's not a huge difference. So you could kind of take several of these gift ideas and kind of couple them together, because I think this cutting board coupled with the infused oil and maybe some bakery bread or homemade bread with this cutting board would make a beautiful like set together. So this is one of my more simplistic hacks. It turned out really cute. I love it. But what do you think? All right, so if you also watch my channel long enough, you'll know that I like serving trays. I love Lazy Susans and all of that. And this kind of is gonna be kind of like a easy hack of this IKEA one. So I found this wood Lazy Susan. I'd never really noticed it before. It was beautiful. It had a really nice richness to the wood. And so we are going to wood burn a monogram. Now I'm gonna include a free printable of all of the letters of the alphabet. So I will link that in the description box below. You can use it as a template to make a stencil, or you could use it as a template to do an image transfer technique, which I will show you later on in the episode, so you can kind of get the concept of that. For me, I like to do wood burning with a stencil on my Cricut machine, so I just cut this out on my Cricut. But again, you can do the method that I'm going to show you in just a second. One thing you need to know about using a vinyl stencil, I always on wood use a permanent one because it just does not want to stick very well. So use permanent vinyl if you're making a stencil and you're putting it on wood. It will save you a whole lot of frustration. It's still going to be kind of hard to peel off your transfer tape. It's gonna want to stick. But once you do get it down, I did something a little bit different this time. I used a different marker. Now I usually use scorch marker. I love scorch marker, but I kind of wanted to try something different out to see if there's something better. And I did feel like I got really good results this time around. Now that may be this new marker, which did feel a little bit thicker. You know, I kind of had to rub it down with my finger. Less is more. You don't want to go crazy and go overboard or you will get bleeding. So once you got that down, you peel back the stencil, and here's another thing that I did differently this time. I got a new heat gun, and I'm telling you, I really think this was all the difference, because it actually has this tip that hyper focuses the heat into one tiny location instead of spreading it everywhere. It kind of has like this pointy tip that concentrates it, and just very carefully went around my stencil, hyper focused heat, and it burned it fast, and I had less scorch marks other places. They're so handy to have around. They help paint to dry super fast. So you might want to consider getting one of those. I spent, I don't know, it was like $20, $25 worth every penny. I'll link that in the description box below. Once you got the image burned on there, I have this concoction. I think it's somewhere on my Instagram account. It's a natural wood conditioner. It's got like coconut oil, beeswax, and lemon juice in it or something like that. It smells really good. And that's what I condition all of my wood pieces in, and I've had good success with that. So I love the simplicity of this. Who wouldn't want a monogrammed Lazy Susan that's as beautiful as this as a gift? Use it as a charcuterie board. There's so many possibilities. Great gift idea, I think, but you'll have to let me know what you think. So we found these little tea towels with the French stripe on either side for 79 cents a piece. And there is so many possibilities you could do with these little things. I made a printable. One says Happy Holidays, one says Happy Hanukkah, and the one we're gonna use says Merry Christmas, because that's what we celebrate at my house. Whatever floats your boat. I mean, you could come up with anything you want. There is a lot of possibilities with this one. So I took my Merry Christmas printable, which will be linked in the description box below, and this is the tracing method. So what you do is you print it out, then you kind of tape everything down, including the tea towel, to like a hard surface, and then you tape down where you want it to be so it kind of doesn't move, and leave it open on one side. Then you take a piece of graphite paper, which I will also link in the description box below, slide it underneath, and then you take a stylus and you trace the image onto your item. So if it's wood or this fabric piece, I've done it on pillows, it works great. So once we have it transferred on, then we are going to take a red paint pen. This time around, I've used Sharpies, you can use that as well, but this time around I used a paint pen. I actually really like the results, so I might get some more paint pens and try this out on other things. But I just went over the top of our image in the red paint pen, and then that's it. Merry Christmas, a little tea towel. You could throw this in with some wood spoons, maybe like a little baking mix. My Grandma Ruth was quite the lady. Even though she's been passed for many, many years now, she has left a legacy and nobody has forgotten her. And part of that was because she was such an amazing example of a woman who served and was good and kind. And also, I think part of that is because of her gifts of love. Now, she had many, many grandchildren, yet she made a handmade gift and sent $5 to each and every one of those grandchildren until the day that she died. So today we're all gonna follow Grandma Ruth's example, and we're gonna make some gifts of love. We're gonna DIY these gifts. They're gonna be handmade, but they're gonna be something that people actually want. So stick with me, because I have a really cool tribute gift idea to my great Grandma Ruth that can translate to your grandma, your loved ones, your kids. We are going to be making a rice heat pack. I've got an assortment of fabrics here, and you can really get away with using whatever. They have some fleece blankets from Walmart that you could make several of them out of. I found this one that's pink, that has little gold flecks in it, and just a simple $2.50 throw from Walmart that you could cut apart and use as well. And this one's kind of solid, so I thought it would pair nicely with either a plaid. I might actually use this one. Another idea I had was there's this fleece kind of microfiber cloth that you can find at the Dollar Tree, and it's so soft and nice. One side could be the solid, and then you could have a fun print with it. But again, you could just go through your fabric pile. I found this plaid and this floral, so there's a lot of flexibility in the fabrics that you could use.
Start out by cutting 2 pieces of fabric into 10 by 40 inch sections. I decided to go with a section of the red fleece blanket and a buffalo check flannel that I picked up at Walmart. There was a little excess, so I decided to make a small one for the eyes. Sew it together on 3 sides, leaving one end open. Cut off the corners on an angle and flip it. Then sew a seam down the middle.
If you don't have a sewing machine and you don't know how to sew, that's okay. You can still do this. Use a really good adhesive like an E6000, but I would highly recommend sewing. This is straight stitching. You can do it. I know you can.
Now it's time to add some essential oil infused rice. I chose to do several drops of lavender oil, which I mixed into the rice, but you could use whatever scent you like. Then I just scooped it up and carefully poured it into the fabric, being sure to evenly spread the rice and not overfill it. You could sew the seam shut with a machine, so it was just a little bit more inconspicuous. I ended up hand stitching it closed. These rice packs are awesome. You can toss them in the freezer, you can toss them in the microwave for a couple of minutes for cool or hot relief, and you could also add some instructions with your gift. This is an awesome and amazing gift, especially for this time of year.
Okay, so next up, we are going to be doing some Rae Dunn inspired mugs. I've got a whole assortment of these mugs from the Dollar Tree. They're not an exact match, but you can't really go wrong with doing a cute Rae Dunn inspired mug.
To make these, simply take your Dollar Tree mugs and apply a permanent vinyl decal to the mug. If you don't have a Cricut machine to make these yourself, I have seen the Rae Dunn decals for sale on Etsy for as little as 50 cents a piece when bought in bulk, making it possible to make these mugs for around $1.50 a piece. What a steal.
I've got these little ornaments at the Dollar Tree. We're going to fill them with hot cocoa, some sprinkles, and maybe some crushed up candy cane.
Even though there's a lid on the bottom of this ornament, I went ahead and layered it from the top tiny hole because when you flip it over, it kind of made a mess that way.
And we are going to simply set those inside our mugs. They fit in there perfectly. And I just think this is a really fun and simple gift that you can't go wrong with. Now, if you don't want to go to the effort of making a Rae Dunn inspired mug, I found some actual Rae Dunn mugs at Home Goods. I know I've seen them at TJ Maxx for $5.99 a piece. They're very on trend, and the handmade part can be the really cute cocoa filled ornaments, and those are from the Dollar Tree. This is a fun and simple thing to put together. Now, you know I couldn't have a gift list and not have a full-on knockoff in it. And that's what we're gonna do on our next DIY gift idea. So I went over to Pottery Barn website and I found these monogrammed candles. They were in like a mercury glass with frosted, and they had an initial on it. And I thought that that would make a really great customized gift. So I found these mercury glass votives at Walmart for $1.97 a piece. You can also pick up these stickers at Dollar Tree, and they have, you know, all the whole alphabet. So you can just pick out whatever initial you want. The possibilities and the creativity on that part will be up to you. All we're gonna do is simply just take off a sticker and stick it on. And then we're gonna just take it outside, and I have some leftover frosted spray paint. You can pick this up at Walmart as well. And we're just gonna frost the glass, and then we'll peel back the sticker and we'll reveal our customized monogram one that looks just like the one from Pottery Barn. And I debated back and forth whether or not to really get it spot on and melt down a candle and put that inside just like the one from Pottery Barn. But honestly, I kind of like the idea of leaving that up to the person you give the gift to. There's a lot of possibilities with this gift, and it is definitely one to love. So I think every one of my grandmothers used to embroider dish towels. They'd do days of the week, and I love that, but I don't embroider. And so we're gonna do like a modern take on this. I picked up this 10-pack of dish towels from Walmart. I think it was about $5 for the whole pack. And we're gonna make days of the week dish towels. And I'm actually gonna be using this red buffalo check for the lettering on it. And I actually found something on Cricut Design Studio ready to go. And so we're gonna actually iron those on, but you don't have to use the red buffalo check. You could definitely get away with using a solid color or something that matches the existing decor of the person that you're giving it to. So there's some possibilities there.
Start by preheating your Cricut to 305 degrees. You're going to want to warm the area where you will be placing the iron-on transfer for about 5 seconds. Then place the iron-on onto the towel and press down for 30 seconds. Then you're going to want to flip it over and press for an additional 15 seconds. Allow it to cool until it's warm but touchable, and then peel it back. It's as easy as that.
If you don't have a Cricut machine, don't worry. You can find an iron-on and iron that on. Or you can go to Michael's. There's a whole ton of stencils that you could do, and you could just simply craft paint them on, and that would be a really good option as well. But I really liked the idea of doing this. All right, next up, we are going to customize an apron. Now, I found this really cute red buffalo plaid apron at Hobby Lobby. I got it half off for $7.50. And I'm going to be making this for my mom because she is always baking for other people. And I thought that she could use this really cute plaid apron to go along with these mama bear slippers that kind of coordinate. And so her last name is Bear. So this is the kind of thing that you need to think about, is like how you can make it customized to the person, to their tastes, their likes, and things that are important to them. So they've always had kind of a bear theme. There's Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear. I found a pre-made SVG file on Cricut Design Studio that had a bear and it says Mama on it. And we're just gonna go ahead and cut that out in black glitter because I already had it on hand and I thought it would be subtle yet cute on the apron, and we are going to simply just cut that out and press that onto the apron. The possibilities on this are really endless. You can go find an apron pretty much anywhere. I know that this is a good gift idea because when I was back in college, I had a friend customize an apron specific to me, and it was really sentimental, really meaningful, and I got years and years of use out of it. So just think about the person and customize the apron that way. All right, so next up is we are going to customize a tote bag. I found this really cute buffalo plaid one on clearance at Joann's for $7.50. You don't have to do a buffalo plaid. You can do something more of like a solid color, but there's a space here where we're gonna customize it, and you can either do like a last name, first name, monogrammed initials, whatever you think would work best in your situation. And I'm again just gonna go ahead and cut something out in Cricut heat press vinyl, and we're gonna press it on. But canvas is really easy to paint, so you could get a stencil with initials or letters and just simply use a paint pen or just craft paint and paint it right onto the canvas tote bag, their name, their initials, whatever. This would make a good gift idea for a teacher or a friend. I mean, who can't use a good tote? All right, so my next set of gifts, I'm gonna be using one of my favorite discoveries of late, and that is a scorch marker. This scorch marker is really cool. Best practice, you use it in conjunction with this heating tool. They're not very expensive, and there's actually a lot of applications for it. And if you discover this little thing, you're gonna be using it all the time on so many things. If you don't want to use the scorch marker, you can do almost all of these next things using like a paint pen. So you don't have to do the scorch marker, but it makes it so much cooler, and you'll see why. Stick with me. You want to see me try fruitcake for the very first time, and I gotta be honest with you, it does not smell good. So this could be interesting. So I have some of these wood rounds. You can find them a lot of different places, and I thought it would be fun to do a monogram on them. Again, we have these stickers from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use them as a stencil, so I'm going to actually just cut out the initial and then peel it back, and then we're going to fill in with a scorch marker, and then we're going to burn it.
Then you're going to want to do some kind of protective seal on it. I used an all-natural furniture polish, but you can use mineral oil or varathane.
We are going to be customizing some wood spoons.
I just simply designed something on my computer using Canva, and then I'm using transfer paper to transfer the image onto the wood spoon. Then I fill it in with a scorch marker.
And then we're going to burn it into the wood spoon, and then every time they use this wood spoon, they're going to think of you. My mother-in-law really loves wood rolling pins, and she collects them. She has a whole assortment of them. And I found this one at Target for about $12, and it had black handles on it, and I thought it was really cute. And I thought we could customize a rolling pin with her name on it, just Grandmother Connors, so that every time she is rolling cookies or a pie crust, she can think of us down in Florida. Our next DIY is my tribute project to my Grandma Ruth, and I am so excited about this. I'm actually going to make myself one because there is so much sentimentality attached to this gift, and it is my favorite of all of the gifts that we have made today. I have a handwritten recipe from my Grandma Ruth. It's actually apparently my great-grandmother's recipe. It's a Christmas cookie recipe. So my Grandma Ruth wrote this in her own handwriting and gave it to my mother. And one thing that I really love about it is she wrote, "These are better than Aunt Edna's version." But if you don't have a recipe, that's okay. There's a lot of flexibility in this idea.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take the recipe and transfer the recipe onto the cutting board. My original plan was to wood burn it right onto the wood. Unfortunately, her handwriting was too small for this, and I ended up just being happy with how it looked after I transferred it onto the cutting board, and I ended up sealing it with some varathane. Now, if you had larger handwriting, I definitely go the wood burning route, but in this instance, I was really happy with just the way it turned out.
So if you have something handwritten or hand-drawn or something totally meaningful like that, and a piece of wood, that is a recipe for absolute handmade gift success, I promise. Now it's time for me to try this fruit cake. It does not look appetizing, but we're gonna do it, so here we go. Oh, I can't. So, lesson learned, do a DIY.
Next up, we are going to be making a serving tray out of a wood round and some handles. And I have to be honest with you, I am really becoming a fan of these wood rounds that you can get at Home Depot for about $6. They are so versatile and look great in decor, so you'll be seeing me probably using these in various applications and for various things. We're going to start out by taking my bottomless pit of Kona gel stain and staining the front and sides, making sure to wipe off any excess. You're going to wait a few hours for this to dry, then you're going to need some sort of stencil with a monogram and last name and the year established. Now, my camera automatically turned off during this part, so I don't know what happened when I painted it, but I did take some black chalk paint and dab it on with a makeup sponge. If you do not have access to a stencil, you could just design something on your computer and use an image transfer technique using a printout and some graphite paper as shown here. Then just paint it out by hand. It's actually not really much more work to do it this way. While the paint is drying, I take some handles that I picked up at Hobby Lobby a while back and just wrap them in some twine using some Gorilla hot glue to hold it in place at the beginning and the end. I just think that this adds a bit more character. Then I just give a light sanding to distress the edges a bit for more of a time-worn look prior to giving it a coat of quick-drying polyurethane. Then I pre-drill some holes and screw on the handles, and that's it. Such a classy high-end look at such a great price of only $12. I'm totally obsessed with this. Next up, we are going to be making a picture pendant, kind of like a locket idea, but instead of opening and closing, it's just for display. Now, as kids get older and they move apart, it's really hard to get a picture together. So you could just go onto some photo editing software like PicMonkey. I personally like to use Canva. Since my locket is an oval shape, I place an oval on my page to kind of give me a general outline. I pull up the pictures I preloaded and I remove the background of these photos. Now this is a feature on their paid version, but there are a ton of apps out there that can remove the backgrounds of photos. You can also do all of what I'm doing on PicMonkey if you prefer. And I just place everyone's photos together until it kind of fits nicely within the oval shape. And then I download the image with no background and place it into Canva's oval frame and shrink it down to the size of my pendant. Then I cut it out and I Mod Podge it on the back and the front into the pendant and allow it to completely dry. Then we need to mix a little bit of resin, and you really do not need much for this project. You mix equal parts of resin, and even though this video is speeded up, it's better if you mix this resin very slowly so that there will be less air bubbles, and you do this about 1 to 3 minutes. Then you're going to very carefully pour your resin into the pendant until it mounds ever so slightly above the ledge without spilling over. In the end, I did have 1 or 2 air bubbles in mine that I could have easily gotten rid of had I had sprayed some rubbing alcohol onto it at the end, but unfortunately I didn't have an extra spray bottle on hand. You need to allow it to dry fully about 18 to 24 hours. Even with the minor blemishes, I am extremely happy with how this turned out, and at a price of only $4 for such a meaningful memento, it was an absolute bargain.
Next up, we're going to be etching this trifle dish. Now this would work on any kind of glass dish that you have. We are going to just be writing the word like delish. You could do yummy, you could do like something custom with like the name. I just love typography in general. You will need some sort of stencil to get this job done. So if you don't have a vinyl cutting machine, this is a time where you would probably need to order a stencil or something.
I center my stencil on my trifle dish and peel back the transfer tape. Then I take my Armor Etch cream and generously place it over my word, making sure not to miss any spots. And I just kind of pounce this on with a brush instead of going back and forth. You want to let this sit on the glass for about 15 minutes. If you feel like an area is getting light during that 15 minutes, move some of the cream around or add a little bit more. Then after it's done sitting, take it to your sink and rinse it off. I put on rubber gloves to protect my hands during this process. Use a paper towel to wipe it off, and then I also use the paper towel and some dish soap to wash it up. Then all you need to do is dry it off. Now, I already had this trifle dish on hand, and I believe I picked it up from Walmart for about $5. So depending on the price of the trifle dish will determine your end price, easily between $10 and $15 with leftover etching cream for other projects. But I really love how this turned out. It's such a showpiece.
A family picture wreath. So what you're gonna need to do is gather up a whole bunch of family photos, and I put them all in a 2 by 3 inch frame on Canva just to make it easy. To keep it consistent look, I made them all black and white. Now you're gonna need a wreath form, and I've got this one and this one from the Dollar Tree. You might want a bigger one, honestly. This is what I had on hand, so I'm gonna go with it.
Gathering all the photos is probably the biggest part of this job. After you've got them printed out, simply cut them down to size.
Then you're gonna need a whole bunch of 2 by 3 inch frames. Now you can pick these up at the Dollar Tree, but if you can't get into the Dollar Tree right now, you can also order them for a little bit more on Amazon, not much, and I'll put a link for them below.
Then put them into the frames and hot glue about 6 or 7 inches of grosgrain ribbon to the backs of the frame, and then you're going to just tie them around the wreath closely together and not cut off the excess ribbon until you are finished. That way you'll be able to adjust them if necessary. When I finished placing them how I liked, I took some ribbon that I got on clearance after Christmas and made a big bow and attached it to the top of the wreath, letting some of the streamers flow down into the wreath. And for just over $15, this is a modern twist on a gallery wall, and it's a wonderful testament to the legacy of your family. I adore this wreath.
Okay, so for our next DIY, we are gonna be making like a cookies for Santa tray. Now I will also be providing a really awesome printable. It looks like this, except for it will be blank down here, so you can kind of fill that in with whatever you want. And so I am going to provide this, all the links will be in that description box, I promise. All you need to do is print it out on that water slide paper. Once again, do 3 coats of that acrylic spray and let it dry. And while you're doing that, I found this really cute picture at Walmart in their fall section. If you hurry there, you might be able to still find it. So then I just took some celery green chalk paint, and the reason I did that is because it really matches all of my Christmas decor. You can kind of go back, watch some of my other Christmas episodes from last year. I'm going to be bringing out a lot of that again and kind of adding to it. And so I just thought, let's keep it kind of all the same. So I just painted out that center part in the chalk paint and let that dry. Once both of our paper is dry and our chalkboard paint is dry, then we can start assembling a tray. Now this one was kind of awkward. I probably should have gotten a different bowl, but it did end up working. I dunked the entire piece of paper into the water, and then it probably took the full 30 seconds this time. And then I slid it onto our wood tray. Now I had sprayed this in kind of like a gloss acrylic, and that's what I had. And then you could kind of see the flat matte from the chalk paint contrasting against kind of the gloss sheen of our sheet. So I didn't want that. So what I did is, once our paper had dried, you want to make sure all of the water is gone. I took it outside and sprayed over it in a matte finish clear coat, and I did several layers, and I kind of went heavy around the edges where you could kind of see the outline, and then it kind of evened everything out, and it all looked one. And I could not believe how professional it was looking at this point. I was so excited. And then I took some handles that I had in my stash, and I used some Gorilla Glue to glue them on the sides. I also used a little bit of hot glue just for some instant stick. Honestly, if you can screw something in, it will be more sturdy. So, and then you want to make sure that that fully cures for 24 hours before you try handling it if you glue them on. But if you can find some that you can just screw on, then go that route. They have a lot of cute ones at Hobby Lobby. So again, that amazing hippo water slide paper is blowing my mind, because this tray is so adorable. And then how it looks displayed with cookies, carrots, and some beverage drink. This product can give such an easy finish with virtually no painting. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Is this awesome? Are we liking this water slide paper? You'll have to let me know what you think of this by commenting below. No. Sit. Good girl. Nope.
For our next DIY, I just wanted to show you just how easy this printable heat transfer vinyl is, with another quick and easy idea for a possible teacher gift. All you need to do is find an image you like. There's so many to choose from on Etsy. I found this one for $3.50, which I will link below, and I printed it out on my regular inkjet printer on this special paper. I trimmed off the excess around the edges just to make it look a bit more finished. And then I got this tote from Walmart in a 3-pack for about $8.50. I pre-ironed it for a few seconds and then peeled back the backing on our heat transfer vinyl and placed it where I wanted and smoothed out the edges. Then I put our protective paper that's included in the packet over the top and ironed it, this time with just my regular iron. I just made sure it was on dry setting and my highest heat setting, and ironed it for about 30 to 45 seconds, making sure to get the edges really good and adding a little bit of pressure while I pressed it. Then I just peel back the protective layer and reveal a very cute tote that you could be very proud to present to your child's teacher. But just think about all the possibilities with this. You could totally change this up and use it in so many different ways. Now, Hippo really wanted you to be able to try out their fun products, so they are giving all of you a coupon code for 40% off this printable iron-on paper and 10% off the water slide paper. Those codes will be in the description box below, and I know you are going to have as much fun as I have.
So are you liking what you see so far? If so, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button below and hit that subscribe button, because it really helps my channel out to continually keep bringing you quality content. Super easy, and it's free. The next several DIYs are just from random different episodes that I thought would make amazing gifts. The next DIY actually was a thrifted item that I thought would turn into an amazing gift, and I was right. I found like this slate cheese board or charcuterie board, and I'm telling you, it was dirty. It was straight up disgusting. But we're gonna turn it into something special for my mom. So the first thing I did was give it a good cleaning. Now the wood was very dry, so I just decided to stain it, and I used a darker gel stain this time. I used the color Kona. And when it was fully dry, I took it out and also gave it a good clear coat. Now, my mother loves charcuterie boards. She loves making these types of things, and she was coming in town for Mother's Day, so I decided to make this with her in mind. I decided to do something fun to customize the slate piece. Did you know that you can etch slate? How cool is that? So I made a custom stencil on my Cricut machine, and then I placed it onto my piece of slate. Then I used Armor Etch cream, and I generously applied it over the area we were etching, and then I let it sit for 15 minutes. Then we're going to just want to scrape off as much as you can with your foam brush, and then put the excess back into the jar, and you can reuse it on another project. Then any remaining that you weren't able to get off with your brush, you can just wipe off with a paper towel, and then take it to your sink. And you'll probably want to wear rubber gloves for this, but use some soap and water to wash off the final residue. Now, before I show you the slate piece, I decided to attach some handles to the wood part that I had picked up from Hobby Lobby to make it easier to carry. It also adds a little bit more interest too, in my opinion. Now, I was gonna screw it on with a drill, but the screws I was using were a little too tiny, and so I had to do it by hand. But it really wasn't as bad as you would think. Now, this piece had been clearly passed over many times based on how much dust was on it. But I bought it for $5, and our made-over version could easily sell for in the ballpark of around $40 or so. And it's so beautiful. Isn't this a great gift idea? So if you ever happen to come upon something like this covered in dust, just know that it might be a real diamond in the rough. And I've got a present for her. You know what it is, but she doesn't. So we're going to open that now. This is a little gift for my mom.
Oh, thank you. It's so beautifully wrapped.
Your favorite color.
My favorite color. All right. Oh, this is so pretty.
Okay, so this is one of my projects this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Be careful, it does come apart, so just be careful with it. Just flip it. Do you know what it is? Charcuterie cheese board.
Oh, I love a charcuterie board.
That's what I've been telling
That
them.
is awesome. That is so beautiful. Fair established. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Thank you, sweetheart. I love you.
Love you. Next up, we're going to be making a cookies for Santa tray, and we are going to be just using this scrap from my fireplace build. It's amazing what you can build with scrap wood. It really is. And I thought that we could just turn this into a cookies for Santa tray that you could use all during the holidays, but especially on that nice Christmas Eve night.
I'm just going to start out by prefacing that this tray turned into the bane of my existence, but I learned so much from it that I can now share with you, and the end result I'm happy with. I start out by painting the entire board in white chalk paint. My first plan was to do an image transfer technique that you've seen me do many times on this channel using Liquitex gel matte medium. This is actually normally a fantastic technique, and many of you have been asking me whether or not you can print this out on an inkjet printer at home. And honestly, I had never tried that before. I had always gone to Staples and used their self-serve LaserJet printer because I really love the print quality. So I wanted to try it out on this project since it was going to be just using black and white print anyway. Let me just tell you, this was a total fail. So the answer is yes, you need to print your image with a LaserJet printer if you are going to do this technique. If you do, then you will have a successful result doing the image transfer technique. But I was not so lucky this time. Normally how you would do this technique, you would do a thick layer of Liquitex matte gel medium as you see me doing here, and then you lay your reversed image face down onto the gel medium while it's wet and smooth it out. Then you let it dry for a minimum of 2 hours or until it's fully dry. Then you're supposed to get a bowl of water and a soft cloth and remove the paper very gently and leave the image. This is where it went wrong for me. The ink should have been very saturated black and maybe slightly distressed, which is fine, but this literally took off chunks of the black and left a totally faded look everywhere else. So this was a fail. I like to share my fails with you just so that you can learn from them, and hey, this is real life DIYing. So I decided what I would do is just go over the faded look in a black paint pen, which I thought would work. This didn't work either. And I think a lot of the problems just ended up being from the gel matte medium, the residue that was still on the tray. While I was waiting for the paint pen to dry, I decided to proceed and do the French stripes on either side of the tray. Now you can see how I'm taping it off by watching me here, but I do a wider stripe followed by 2 smaller stripes on either side using some washi tape. And then I very carefully paint on red craft paint. Again, I'm going for more of a rustic look this time, so I did not do my normal striping technique that you've seen me do on here before. Once the paint was dried, I peeled back everything to reveal the stripes. I distressed the paint pen lettering and the stripes, and then I wiped it off with a wet rag, and it just totally made everything disappear, almost like I hadn't painted or done anything on the lettering, and it made a black smeary mess. At this point, I decided to sand everything down and use a stencil, and that's what I did in the end. Now, I did design this image, so I will provide a link to it in the description box below. Then I attached my handles. I get these at Hobby Lobby for 50% off for $3 a piece. Even though this ended up being kind of a headache for me, in the end I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I think it's an adorable place to put cookies or serve holiday treats and drinks, and the only expense I had really was the handles. The rest of everything I used was just supplies that I already had on hand, so even when you calculate a little bit of cost for that, in the end this cost me around $6.50 to complete, and I think it is so cute, so chic, so farmhouse. But what do you think?
Now my next DIY is going to be like a casserole tray, and we're going to build it from scrap wood. All right, do I look like we've been building stuff or what? I literally cannot think of a more perfect first power tool project. This is gonna be so much fun. And I've dug through my scraps and I've got perfect scraps to build this with, but mine happen to be the right dimensions, which are 10.5 by 14.5. And I have these shorter scraps. We're gonna cut them down to fit the sides. This is gonna be fun to have. I'm really excited about this.
So I am using 1x4s for the sides, and we are gonna cut down the short sides first, and then we're gonna cut the long sides, just doing butt joints. Then we just attach using wood glue and finish nails. I'm using a nail gun because I love my nail guns, but you could definitely use this part with just a hammer and nails. Fill all the nail holes with a little lightweight spackling. I didn't want to have paint on the inside, so I just used antiquing wax for the inside of the box. Then I had this turquoise color paint that I got in the Oops section for $1.25. I paint the exterior of the box in that. I put on these adorable handles that I get at Hobby Lobby. They're so cute and chunky, and they run $3 each on sale. I screw them in by hand, but the wood is soft enough to be able to do this. Then I made a decorative label on my Cricut machine. Now, if you don't have a Cricut machine, then you could just tape this off with some painter's tape in the shape of a rectangle and then fill it in with this new chalkboard paint that I got at the Dollar Tree. Then I scuff up the edges a little bit, cover up the silver screws with a little bit of brown craft paint. And I thought I got this next part on camera, but I end up putting some felt circles on the bottom of this just in case I want to use it on my dining table to prevent scratching. But how cute is this scrap wood casserole carrying tray? I think this would make a fantastic gift idea. Even if you were buying the supplies, it would be very affordable to put together. You could put whatever color on the exterior as you want. I have a feeling there are more of these in my future because they are just so darn cute.
So a couple of months ago, I showed you just how easy it is to convert a printer into a sublimation printer, and it is so much fun. I am totally obsessed with sublimation. It just gives such a professional look to your projects. So I wanted to do a little Santa sack, and I've seen them around, and I'm like, we can make one of these, pretty simple. So what I did is I got some 65% polyester fabrics. Now, if you want to learn about sublimation, you're gonna wanna go check out that video I did because I really break it down. In my video, you'll see just how easy it is to do, I promise you. We print it out on Hippo paper using Hippo sublimation ink. I am really impressed with their products. And then I laid it out just to kind of see where we needed to cut it and how it would look on the bag. Basically, I cut it down where it was already folded, and then I gave it a good iron. And then I sewed down the side seams. And then I also did a zigzag edge to kind of finish it off so there was no fraying. Then we left a little section at the top where we had kind of ironed down on our iron and created a little pocket. You can see it here, what it looks like. It's folded and folded again and ironed down to make it easier. And before we stitch that, we're gonna fold those little end pieces that we didn't sew. First, we're gonna clip it a little bit, fold it over, stitch it down the side, and then that will kind of finish off those edges. Then we're gonna roll it back down and stitch it across so that there's a little pocket, and then you have a little sack. Okay, so now we have our sack sewn and ironed out. It looks really good. I'm really liking it at this point. And before we put in our cord, we're gonna take it over to our heat press and we're gonna put some parchment paper on the inside of the sack and then press it down for 5 seconds. And then we're gonna lift it up and then we are going to take our sublimation reversed print, put it face down, and then we're gonna take some heat tape and kind of tape it into place so it doesn't move around, and then we're gonna take some parchment paper over the top of that. Then we're gonna press it down. This is at 400 degrees for 45 seconds. And you could also use your easy press if you want. I am really liking this for sublimation. It's a little bit bigger coverage, so it works out great. And then you lift it up and you reveal our Santa sack. And isn't that cute? And then we're gonna just add some white cording. I attach a pin and kind of thread it through and then tie a knot on either side, cut off the excess cord, and that is it. So then you have a really cute sack. What do you think of this Santa sack? So this next DIY, I made this name sign for our family, but I have since made smaller versions of this and given them as wedding gifts and other gifts. They make awesome ones, so you can kind of scale it down. It makes a wonderful gift. It's very inexpensive and very cute. I have noticed all of these massive farmhouse kind of rustic signs that are kind of blacks and whites and have like rust spots on them, and they are so great. I love them, but they're pretty expensive. But we're gonna have to take a quick hop outside to get this project started, so I'll meet you out there. So here's my piece right here that we're gonna be making the sign out of. You can't even see me now because it's such a big sign. This is 24 inches by 48 inches. This is just a scrap piece left over. I think it might be like the last of my scraps from my craft table build. Now you'll notice that it's kind of thin, so I want to build a frame for that. Now you could just use like a 3/4 inch plywood piece, but I think that this is actually a little bit better because it will be a little lighter in the end. We're gonna make it look beefier by taking one of these, I think this is called like common boards. It's like a 1x2, and they do sell something similar to this for $1 for an 8-foot piece. It's really rough and warped a lot of the times. This one's $2. I recommend spending the extra $1. These are typically much straighter, less knot, less roughness, so this is a better way to go. I have 2 of them. This should be good for the top and bottom, and then we need another one for the sides. So we're just gonna go ahead and cut this on my miter saw just because it's gonna make it a much faster process. But you don't need that. You could use a circular saw, jigsaw, or even like a miter box, like a hand saw if that's what you have, because these are pretty easy cut. I'm not gonna do a tutorial on how to use this miter saw in this episode because I've done it on other episodes, but basically we need to cut these down to size to build a frame essentially, or a backer for our piece of wood. So we're gonna measure, we're gonna cut the side panels first, and that's 24 inches. So then we're just gonna measure 24 inches, make our mark. If we can find our pencil, there it is. There we go. All right, before we make our cut, we got to make sure we put on our safety glasses to protect our eyes. And if you want to wear a face mask, feel free to do that. I'm in open air and I feel okay about making these simple cuts without one. But I always recommend wearing one, especially if you have any issues with your lungs. So before we cut the top pieces, I'm going to place our side pieces so we can know exactly how to measure them. So we're just going to line these up, make sure they're going to work. Now we can measure it, and we have 45 1/8, and we'll make that cut. All right, so normally I would finish building this outside, but I will admit I'm being kind of a wimp and it's a little hot outside. So I just decided to bring it inside, and we are just gonna assemble this together, and I'm gonna use some little clamps to hold it in place while we take our electric staple gun, which actually also has a brad nail feature on it, which is perfect for what we're doing. It's really simple to use, and what's really nice about it is you just squeeze the trigger instead of having to swing a hammer and nails and maybe hit your fingers.
We're going to start out by laying out our frame, how we cut it, and placing our large piece of wood on top, because we will be driving our brad nails from the front side. Once everything is nicely lined up and clamped into place, make sure you hold your electric brad nailer firmly into place and pull the trigger, placing many nails all the way around.
All right, so we've got the frame on the back so it's much sturdier, and then you can't see me? No, you can't? Peekaboo, just kidding. We are ready to just get this all painted up and then work on our stencil.
Now, you could choose to fill these nail holes if you wanted to, but due to the rustic nature of this sign, I didn't feel like it was necessary. Then I just take some leftover white oops paint that I already had on hand and painted the whole thing white.
For this part, you're going to need a vinyl stencil or something printed out on paper that you can use with graphite paper to transfer the image onto the board, as I have previously showed you on this episode.
Once we've got it applied, we are ready to go outside and spray paint. But I've got a little trick that I want to show you that may take you by surprise.
So we need our sign to be rustic looking. We are going to spray paint it in this flat black spray paint. And then I'm gonna make it look a little rusty, and I'm gonna do that by using some cinnamon. I know. Hopefully it makes it smell good after everything dries. I don't know, but rust kind of has this color right here. And so what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle this on as I spray paint. If I don't like something, I'll spray a little bit over it to kind of even it out. And so you'll just have to kind of watch what I'm doing. I've never done this before, but I'm hoping that it works, and we'll see how it goes. All right, I gotta be honest right now, I'm feeling a little bit nervous about the cinnamon and the spray paint. I'm hopeful, but I just don't know. So we're gonna let this dry. This is the thing with DIYing. I've never used this technique before, so it's kind of fun to try things new.
Now that it's dry, we are going to peel off the vinyl and expose our white lettering. When I see the results, I am very pleased. There were a couple of spots where I didn't get the vinyl lettering quite matched up perfectly, but that's okay. I just go back in with a paintbrush and hit it with that original white paint. Now, to seal the cinnamon, just so it doesn't flake everywhere, I spray it with a flat clear coat. I really didn't feel like a shiny polyurethane would have worked for this sign. Now, even with this clear coat, you can still smell the cinnamon, which is awesome in my opinion. Before we can hang it, we need to put some hooks on, and I simply just screw those into the back of the frame, and now it's time to hang. I have less than $10 in supplies on this project due to the scrap wood. I just love how this turned out. Think it would make a great gift, but what do you think?
All All right, so my next DIYs, a lot of them are based with a Cricut machine. If you don't have a Cricut machine yet, I highly recommend them. Christmas is coming up. They make gift giving so easy because you can customize and personalize using a Cricut machine. So if you haven't invested in one yet, I really recommend them. They are really awesome. You like my earrings? They're pretty cute, right? I'm gonna show you how to DIY ones similar to this using a Cricut machine. They are honestly my favorite type of earrings to wear. They are so lightweight and you almost don't feel like you're wearing anything at all. It's awesome. First off, you're gonna need some kind of faux leather. You can actually use real leather too. You can get them in a whole assortment of colors.
Making these faux leather earrings is super easy. The first thing we need to do is go into Cricut Design Studio, and then we're gonna click on Images and type in the words teardrop. A couple of options should come up, and then we click on that. For mine, I flip it around and I adjust the size to whatever size you want, and then I get rid of the teal one because I simply want a solid teardrop earring for this project. And then I add a circle shape and shrink it down to a tiny little 0.111 size circle, and then I put that up near the top to create a hole for the earring to slip through. And that's all we need to do. We just hit make it and select metallic leather and cut it out. Now you could leave it plain like this and just add an earring hook, which you can find at any craft store. Or if you want something with a little more sparkle, similar to what I'm wearing in this episode, you take any kind of fun earring with just a little sparkle and bling to it and slip it right through that earring hole, and then you have an awesome leather earring with a little bling, and it took hardly any effort. Now, if you're just making the simpler earring version, you're gonna have about $1 into this project. $1. If that. You can layer this, you can do different shapes. This one was just a simple idea that I had for you today.
Now my next DIY gift idea with a Cricut is a customized doormat. And who wouldn't want to get one of these for Christmas? I know a lot of people pick up their blank ones at IKEA, and that's a great deal. I actually got mine at Walmart and it was only like $5 or $6, so that was also a fantastic price. It's very thick. I'm really impressed by the quality of it.
So for this project, we need to design a stencil, a very large one. So what we're going to do is start out by making a rectangle the same size as our doormat. In my case, that's 18 inches by 30 inches. Then we are going to write the last name of the person who is getting the gift. The font that I used is called Rostilla.
All right, so you can see that I've made all the letters separated, and then I'm individually placing them where I want them to be. I even enlarged the B just so it stood out a little bit more. So just take some liberties here. And we are going to enlarge it and then turn it on like a 45-degree angle so it stretches from one edge to the other and kind of overlaps the edges a little bit so it kind of runs off on the edges. Now a Cricut mat only cuts as large as 11.5 by 23.5 inches, so we need to now adjust the rectangle that's behind it into 3 separate pieces so that it will cut on our machine. Then we're going to need to highlight one section at a time, so you're going to drag and highlight one rectangle over the lettering at a time and then hit slice. You can't do this all at the same time because you can only do 2 objects at a time when using the slice feature in Cricut Design Studio. Once you have them all sliced, then we get rid of all of the excess, and then we are going to hit make it and cut out each of these stencils one at a time. You're going to weed it out and put transfer tape on, but here's where you need a little patience. I am using permanent vinyl because what we are trying to attach it to, like the surface, is really not going to want to accept the vinyl. It's kind of scratchy, it's a bit uneven, so it will stick and it will work, but you're going to have to take your time in attaching it to the rug.
Now, once you've got it attached, and it will attach eventually, we're going to use a hair dryer to kind of shrink wrap it to the rug because the heat kind of makes it suck into place a little bit. And then just for a little bit of added security, I take some blue painter's tape and kind of tape off the edges and seal the seams where we joined our very large stencil together. Now it's time to paint. I've seen a lot of people use all kinds of acrylic paints, chalk paints, etc. But I decided to just buy some spray-on truck bed liner because I figured if it's strong enough for that it might be able to take a beating under people's feet too. Now, if you were to order a customized doormat off of Etsy or someplace like that, you can expect to pay around $50. But ours cost around $7 to $8, including supplies, yet it really does have that wow factor. What do you think? Is this something you would love to get for Christmas?
We are going to be customizing this glass baking dish.
And to do this, we're going to go back into Cricut Design Studio and we are going to make a rectangle to create a stencil. Just keep in mind the area that you have to work with and adjust accordingly. Now, you can get all kinds of crazy when designing this, but to keep things simple, I just want to go into the image section on here and I typed in the word homemade. And I found an image that I liked and I hit insert image, and then we adjust the size to fit our area, and then I just simply centered it onto our rectangle, and then I highlighted everything and hit slice and got rid of all of the excess, and now we have our stencil. Now, before you hit cut, this part is very important. You need to make sure that you click mirror because you need the image to be reversed, and you'll see why in just a second. I set it to cut on premium vinyl and I load it into my machine and hit the C button for cut or Cricut, and then once it's done cutting, we weed out all of the excess and put on our transfer tape and then peel it off of our mat. And then we want to make sure our cake pan is really clean first. So I clean it using some rubbing alcohol, and now we are going to apply our stencil to the back side of the dish. Now it's time for some etching.
Now, when I first saw this product, I was a little bit scared, to be honest with you. And then since I've used it, I've realized really and truly there's nothing to be afraid of with using this etching cream. It is actually quite fun.
So to etch our glass, I am going to be using a product called Armor Etch. All we need to do is get a foam brush and load this product on top of the stencil fairly thickly, but nothing crazy, and kind of move it around over the course of 15 minutes, making sure that everything is always covered with this product. Now, once it's done sitting for 15 minutes, I put on some gloves and grab a paper towel, and I start rinsing it in my sink under hot water, and then I add a little soap to the paper towel and kind of scrub off all of the Armor Etch so there's no more product on there. And then I peel back the stencil and let it dry. And that's it. Easy peasy. My baking dish costs me around $6 plus a little bit of supplies, so we're in this about $7 or $8. And if you were to get a customized baking dish, you can expect to pay around $40. But I like my price, a super high-end gift for pennies on the dollar.
We are going to take one of these signs. They have them for every season at the Dollar Tree. And what we're going to do with this sign is turn it into a perpetual calendar. I buy these little small wood rounds, and I also get them in square wood rounds at Hobby Lobby in a pack of 4. And then also I get these little candle bases. You've seen me do this kind of technique in past episodes. This one's a little bit shorter and a little bit chunkier, and I wanted to give it a try because I thought it was awesome. But what we're going to do is we are going to just take my favorite glue combination. which is A6000 and hot glue, and we are going to glue our candlestick to our base right in the center.
Then we're going to attach the wood canvas from the Dollar Tree on the top of the short candlestick by using the same glues. Then we're going to let this dry very well. I would let it dry overnight, to be honest with you. Before we paint, you're going to want to make sure that any glitter is sanded off so that when we paint it, it doesn't show through. And I painted what would be the back side in white chalk paint and let that fully dry. Then we are going to paint the entire rest of it in a black chalk paint and clean up any edges so you have a nice foundation. You can leave it like this, or you can sand off the edges a little bit to give it more of a rustic look like I did. Now you're going to need 6 paint sticks, and you can buy these in a 10-pack for $1 at the home improvement store. So these are super inexpensive, and you're going to cut these down to 4.5 inches using whatever cutting method that you are comfortable with, including these miter shears like I use here, or you can take it outside and use a miter saw or a miter box. And then we will definitely want to make sure you sand down off any of the ruler markings of the paint, just because we will be using both sides. Now I'm leaving mine unfinished because I like this look, but you can also paint the paint sticks and all of the tags out as well. Then I got these 2x3-inch wood tags from Michael's for very inexpensive. To prepare these, you need to make a hole in the top of the tags and 2 holes in the top of the paint sticks, because you will be using these to hang them from a nail here in a few seconds. I used my Crocodile, which is a scrapbooking cutter that's very strong and can cut through metal, but you can also use a drill with smaller bit as well. Now we need to design our vinyl that we are going to be placing on these tags. So you're just going to need to go into Cricut Design Studio and type out all of the months in the year and pick the font that you want. I used the font Grab, and then make sure that it will fit on a 1x4.5 inch paint stick. Then I also did the numbers to fit on our 2x3 inch tags, and just make sure that you have a 1, 2, and a 3 for the one side and all of the other numbers for the other side, including a 0. I hope that makes sense. Now I will be cutting mine out on my Cricut Maker, but you can use any machine you want to do this, and the Cricut Joy would also be perfect for this job as well. Then we just cut it out in permanent black vinyl, and we weed out all of the extra, and then we stick on our transfer tape and cut out each individual month and number. And now it's time to attach it to our tags. Make sure you do this in order. So on one side you'll do January, on the other side you'll do February, and so on and so forth on all of your tags. And you do the same thing with the numbers in numerical order. And you can see here that I've applied them correctly. I can do all of the days and the months of the year. We need to make sure everything is lined up how we want it, and so we use some paint sticks to kind of help us make sure that everything is aligned around the edges, and then we can mark where we want to put our nails. And then we very carefully hammer them into place. And then if I were you, I would pull them back out and add a very tiny amount of Gorilla Hot Glue and re-tap them back into place. This will just be a little bit of added security, since the back of the frame is not all that thick, and so therefore the nail can't go in super far. And then you can simply hang the tags. This project took me the most time out of all of them, honestly, but I'm really happy with the final results. I think this is really cute, and it cost about about $7 versus what you could easily pay for in a store of around $30 to $35. I just love this, but what do you think?
I'm doing a tribute gift to my grandma bear, and I cannot wait for you to see it because it's amazing, and you're gonna wanna stay tuned for that. Okay, so this next gift idea is a good one, and it's super affordable as well. We are gonna be doing a monogrammed glass cutting board.
I made a custom monogram where I split the letter down the middle and put in my last name. However, I've got a cheat method for you this time. So if you go into Add Image in the Cricut Design Studio and type in the letter of the last name that you will be doing, you should be able to find something that looks like this one. And hit Insert Image, and then we can create a stencil out of this. So I'm going to be using a Dollar Tree glass cutting board for my project, and those dimensions are about 7.5 by 7.5 inches square. We're going to stretch our S out until we like how it looks and hit center, and then we slice it and remove the excess. And then I type out the name of the person that this is going to, and I want it to be in Times New Roman font. Unclick the left lock button underneath the name and adjust the height and stretch it out to fit the area as you see me doing here. Now we're going to hit slice on that. Now, just like our baking dish, when you go to hit make it, you're definitely going to want to make sure you hit mirror, because you need this to also be reversed, because we are going to be doing this on the underside again. And then we cut it, weed it, and then add transfer tape. Are you getting this yet? And then we attach it to the back of the cutting board. And then we're going to take our armor etch cream back out again and repeat the same process we did on the baking dish by doing a thick layer, moving it around over the course of 15 minutes. Then we take it to the sink and rinse it off with a little bit of soap on a paper towel. And that's it for this project. And we have maybe about $2 worth of supplies into this. And if we were going to get a customized monogrammed cutting board, you can expect to pay $25 to $30 easily. And we just did ours for a couple of bucks. Isn't it a cute gift idea?
I hope you're liking these gift ideas, and I've got another one for you now. We are going to be customizing and monogramming some Dollar Tree glasses. Now, there are a ton of ways you could do this. We're going to be breaking out our etching cream again.
But first we need to go into Cricut Design Studio and design our stencil. Now, remember that monogram that I told you I designed back in my Mother's Day gift video? Well, I decided to take that exact design and shrink it down for the glasses. So you could just repeat the same process from the cutting board if you didn't already have it designed, and do this on a smaller scale. And that's basically what we're doing here, and this makes for an easy project really. So that's a little tip for you. You see how you can reuse other designs that you have made in different ways. Now, the only difference between this and the other ones that we've etched before is we do not need to mirror image this one, because we will be doing this on the outside of the glass instead of on the underside, if that makes sense. So no reversing this image this time around. So then we cut it, we weed it, and use transfer tape to attach it to the front of our glasses near the top. Again, we pull out our armor etch cream and put it on the glass and move it around over the course of 15 minutes. And then we wash it off like we've done in the other ones. And I just adore how these turned out. So we maybe have $5 to $6 into these glasses, and if we were to order these right now, you could expect to pay $50. So massive savings again for a high-end looking gift for pennies on the dollar. But what do you think?
So for my next DIY, you will need the Cricut Maker model, because what we are going to be doing is taking a spatula, and these ones I just got at the Dollar Tree. We are gonna engrave like the spatula portion. Isn't that cool?
So I'm going to keep this as simple as possible for you because I know it's a newer technique and that you may not have tried it before. So all we're going to do is create a rectangle in the dimensions of our spatula. This is to give you an idea of the space that you're working with. And then we're going to go into the image section on the Design Studio, and I typed in made with because I was looking for something that says made with love. And then I found this image. And then up top, you're going to make sure it's set to engrave. This is important. And then you're just going to adios the rectangle because you don't need it. And then you're going to hit make it. And then it's going to pop up in the middle of your mat. Now we're going to need to relocate where this is at. So we're going to need to make this go all the way to the bottom of the mat. And then you're going to want to make sure you rotate it so that it's upside down so that it's facing the right direction on your spatula. And then you're going to set the material to anodized aluminum. I said that word right. Yay! Now you're going to need to switch out the blade to the engraving blade, and it's actually pretty easy. All you have to do is open it up as I'm showing you here, make the switch, and close it back into place. Now you're going to need to make sure your spatula is taped down to your cutting mat using blue painter's tape, and make sure it is exactly where you had it on the mat. And we're going to load it into the machine and hit the C button. And I would stay close by, kind of keep your eye on this just to make sure that it all works out. But if you make sure that the crease of the spatula is lined up with the bottom line of the mat, you should be okay. I'll run it through my machine about 3 to 4 times just because with each pass it kind of engraves it a little bit deeper. But make sure you do not unload it and just keep hitting the C button over and over until you're happy. If you unload it and try to reload it, it will not line up the same. Now this is a $1 gift, and it's pretty amazing $1 gift. If you were to get a custom engraved spatula on Etsy right now, you can expect to pay $25, and you could make a whole bunch of them back to back to back. What do you think?
So for our next DIY, I've got a couple of unfinished wood frames. And the way you could customize this, there's a lot of possibilities. You could put in a photo there that has special meaning and kind of write something that pertains to that.
So you're going to need to make sure that you measure the area of the frame that you're going to be working with. So for me, I'm going to be working with the top and the bottom, and I make rectangles in those dimensions because I'm going to be making stencils. On the top, I'm going to put in Sisters Forever, and then on the bottom, I'm going to be putting my sister and my name with a couple of hearts. Now, you can put names and meaningful dates of the photo. So there's a lot of different ways you could personalize this. The font that I used is called DJ Flirt. And then I just cut it out on premium vinyl. Weed it. Transfer tape it and put it on top of my unfinished wood frame. And then I just take some black chalk paint and very carefully dab it onto the frame. And it was kind of dark outside, so I didn't record this part, but I took it outside and spray painted it with a clear varathane coat. Now, I have about $5 into this frame, and for a customized frame on Etsy, you could easily spend $30, maybe even more. So again, more savings and awesome personalized results. And I'm just wondering how you would personalize this.
So I drink a ton of water. So I always have like a water thermos or tumbler on hand. So I really like this next gift idea where we are going to be customizing this beautiful one for friends, and I might make one for myself. Shh.
So honestly, this is probably my easiest gift idea of this episode. And all I did is typed in my friends' names into Cricut Design Studio. And I think I originally put in a different font, but what I ultimately ended up using is called Stay Girly. Isn't that fun? But use whatever script font that you want, or even block letters if you're doing it for a guy. Now, I didn't really worry about the height of our letters, but I made sure that the width of it would fit inside the dimensions of my tumbler. So it will vary, you know, depending on what kind of tumbler you use. Then I just cut it out on my Cricut machine in a gold foil vinyl. Now, one thing to note about this type of vinyl is I do not believe it is dishwasher safe, but I don't really ever wash my tumblers in the dishwasher anyways. I always wash them by hand, so this will work out fine for that. But isn't this so cute? And depending on the cost of your tumbler will determine the final price for yours. But mine was insulated and it had this really pretty iridescent shimmer finish on it outside. So I splurged a little bit, about $10 a piece. But if I were to order them right now on Etsy, I could spend $20 to $25 for this type of version. But you could find tumblers at the Dollar Tree and do this a lot more economically. Wouldn't you want one of these?
I was blessed with really amazing grandmothers. And so my Grandma Bear was such a huge example to me in my life. She went to college and received her degree in a time when women didn't really do that. And it was one of the motivating factors for me to really pursue and finish my education as well. She is really one of my heroes. So my Grandma Bear passed away a few years ago, and I thought it would be a really awesome gift idea for my dad to do something with the last letter she ever wrote to him.
So we are going to be creating a sign using just her signature and how she signed the letter. So you will need a PNG or a JPEG form for your letter. Just scan it into your computer and save it in that format. Then you can upload it into a site that removes background. Here I am just using remove.bg, and I will put that website in the description box below. I am not showing the part where I upload the letter, but once it uploads and removes the background, you can go into the erase feature and erase everything but the part that you want. Then we would just upload this image into Cricut Design Studio and turn it into an image there that we can use. Now my sign is going to be 12 by 24 inches, so I make a rectangle to the dimensions of 11.5 by 23.5, which is the maximum dimensions that a Cricut can cut at one time. Then I put that behind my grandma's signature and stretch her signature out to fit in that area. And then I want to make sure and center it. Then I highlight everything and hit slice and then I get rid of all the excess that we don't want. And now we have a stencil, which I then hit make it, and we cut it out in removable vinyl. Weed and transfer tape, as we have done in all of these tutorials. Now, before we get started on painting, I wanted to show you how to make a frame.
All right, so we are gonna get powerful real quick. I'm gonna show you how to make a miter frame. It is super easy. We're gonna use a miter saw. It's not scary, I promise. So we've got our saw here, and this is how it will be normally. You have it at 0 degrees, which should give you a 90-degree cut. But we want to do a miter cut, which is a 45-degree angle. So all we need to do here is we loosen up this handle, and then we pull this lever, and then we're gonna move it all the way over until you get to 45 degrees. Then you release this button, and then it should click into place, and then we're gonna just tighten it. So there's this yellow button right here. It could be a different color. And you are gonna take that and pull that in with your thumb. And then you're gonna pull this little button here with your hand, and it will pull like this. And that's how we turn it on. So we're gonna just go ahead and make some 45-degree cuts. We're gonna put on our safety glasses. Now we're gonna just take one of our square dowels and cut it off at a 45-degree angle, line it up.
Now, our dowels that I used are 1-inch dowels square that I picked up at Hobby Lobby for about $1.50 a piece, and you need 2 dowels. If you don't have a power saw, you could use a miter box, but these might be a little too much for the miter shears to handle in my experience. Then I took this inside and used antiquing wax for the frame on 3 of the sides, and then I painted my wood canvas out in white chalk paint. And then I let all of that dry. And then I applied my stencil to our white canvas. To make sure that all of the lines are crisp and clean and that there's no leakage, I repaint over the stencil in my white paint so that when it bleeds the original white color and creates a nice seal. Then I go back over it with black chalk paint and I let this dry. And then I peel back our stencil and now it's time to attach our frame. I first attach it using Gorilla Hot Glue and E6000, which are my two favorite glues. And then for a little bit more stability, and because I do believe this could turn into an heirloom piece one day, on the reverse side I flip it over and take my electric staple gun and drive in a few brad nails just for added security. I rough up the edges with a little sandpaper just to give it a time-worn look. Then I take some Dollar Tree hanging hooks and hammer those in on either side. Now, I thought it would be a nice touch to add an envelope where you could place a copy of your original letter onto the back side. So I just do that with double-sided sticky tape, and then you can have everything together all in one place. Now, I have maybe $5 to $6 into this gift, and to me it is the most amazing of all my Christmas gifts this year. If you were to get this off of Etsy, you would pay $75 to $100 easy. And so not only are they massive savings, but an absolutely beautiful and meaningful gift that to me is almost priceless.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. And if you haven't done so already, consider hitting that subscribe button right here. It's super easy to do. And I would love it if you joined the DIY Niner family. And to all of my DIY Niners, I just want to remind you that you are more powerful than you know. We'll see you next time. Bye.